Welcome to my Compound Life. I'm Jonathan. This is a channel where we build assets, we build great habits to manage all of our assets, and of course, it will all lead to freedom. That should really be financial freedom, time freedom, so that all of you guys can enjoy more of your life, retire slightly earlier than anticipated. It's the 8th of January 2026. If this is your first time stumbling across my video, Happy New Year. It's good to see you. Please hit the like, hit subscribe. Even for the existing viewers, just remember to hit the like right now, just before you finish the video, or on your way out. Just remember to hit the like anyway. I'm such a small content creator. I really need you guys to hit the like, hit subscribe, let more people know about my video and my content so that I can eventually grow. So it's part of my routine to, part of a habits that I'm building to try to grow my YouTube channel. So any little helps from you guys. This, by the way, it's a Bitcoin daily video. So at the time of recording, it's about 9:20 a.m. in the morning. So Bitcoin price right now is dropping fast. $90,047. Okay, so not good. I think right now Bitcoin is trading around 90,000, 89,000 to about 91,000. So in the past 24 hours, it went down by about 3%. Starting from about 92,000, hitting a high near 92,900 and low around 89,500. So we are still, however, 28% away from previous all-time high of around 126,000. And a reminder, when was that? That was sometime in October the 8th. Gosh, I missed that time, right? How I wish I can just turn back time and sell all of my swing back for Bitcoin. And remember that, in this channel, we always practice a hodl back for your Bitcoin as well as a swing back. A hodl back, you continue to hodl for a long period of time. You always try to grow it. And of course, a swing back for Bitcoin. Swing back are pretty cool, that you buy low, sell high and try to make a living from it. A bit like what I'm doing. Anyway, in summary, thank goodness, I would still say Bitcoin continue to hold steady about 90,000. No big crash just yet. Okay, so I still feel we are heading towards a bear market. Okay, so let me know your thoughts, guys. Let me know your thoughts. What do you guys think? Right. So in terms of what's happening right now in the market, let me see. Yeah. So in terms of what's happening in the market, not exactly all positive. We'll get into the news section to talk about the rest of the market, but let's quickly move on to fear and greed index. Fear and greed index, we are currently at around 29. We obviously dropped tremendously from yesterday. I think yesterday was around 41. So in this week, we managed to clinch onto neutral for 2 days, including yesterday and the day before. And then we're now back onto fear zone. It's a small grind up in terms of this benchmark. So I think give it another few more days. We'll see whether can we, reclaim and make 94,000 to 95,000 as the support for Bitcoin, as opposed to a key resistance, key barrier for Bitcoin to proceed further. Okay, so fear and greed index, are definitely not in our favor right now. And of course, quick look into the ETF. I haven't refreshed this. Apology. Let me refresh this now quickly. Okay, January 7th, yesterday's. Overall, it was bearish for Bitcoin, $486 million worth of outflow. And majority actually came from Fidelity, Bitwise, and BlackRock, right? But at least it's only 486,000, So I guess whatever gain we receive on the 5th of Jan, right? Essentially everything's got wiped out again. Okay, so on a weekly chart, let me refresh that quickly. Weekly, so far for this week, initially I was anticipating at least bring us back to about 800 million worth of inflows, right? Or anything double this, around 800. But for this week, so far, on Thursday, looks like this trend will and may well continue. Bitcoin will continue to get onto a bearish, well, at least from an ETF perspective, it's bearish, and I don't anticipate Friday to make any big changes immediately. So for the time being, Bitcoin ETF for the week will be outflow of 32 million overall, right? Compared to last week, it was actually bullish of 458 million. So not a great start so far for 2026. And then quick look on Ethereum ETF. What's Ethereum price right now? Let me just quick look. So Bitcoin now dropped to about 89,000, Ethereum 3,100. It still managed to hold okay-ish, I guess. Apart from the fact that it dropped more than Bitcoin for the past 24 hours. But yes, for the past 7 days, it still managed to, do better than Bitcoin. But anyway, coming back to Ethereum. It is yesterday, 7th of Jan, yesterday it was also bearish. Outflow of $98 million. Again, coming from the same suspect, BlackRock, Fidelity, Bitwise. And if we quickly look through weekly performance for Ethereum, I think it will be a similar chart. Oh, actually, it's still bullish for Ethereum, right? For the week. Right, it's still bullish for the week for Ethereum. So Ethereum for a week, it's 184 million worth of inflow. We'll see how it goes with today and tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes by Saturday when we've got the full week's data. Because every time when Bitcoin dips, every time when there's sell-off for Bitcoin or even Bitcoin ETF, I think eventually Ethereum will follow suit too. So it just kind of lag a little bit. But that would be my assumption. And of course, Solana sold ETF. What we are seeing here is, again, Solana did well. 7th of Jan resulted in inflows of 2 million. Tiny inflow, mainly coming from Bitwise. And so far for Solana for the week, definitely positive. It's 27 million worth of inflow. It's growing gradually. I think Solana will very likely close the week with positive inflow and slightly, bigger portion. So I think Solana, let me see, for the months of January, I think I'm kind of thinking, since it's the beginning of January, if it continue with this trajectory, very likely it will outperform December's worth of inflow. Um, yeah, That's it for Bitcoin price action. I think so far the price action are the trend so far speaks for itself. It's more of a sign of bearish than bullish. So we'll just have to accept that and move on. Okay, so let's quickly look into the news that moves Bitcoin price. So let's move on to news that move Bitcoin price section. Okay, the first thing I want to cover is the CME Gap. Okay, so CME Gap. So people are saying that has been fully filled. Only one of them, right? So CME Gap happens on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, CME, right? Where Bitcoin futures trades. Unlike 24/7 crypto markets, CME closes on weekends or during holidays. So if BTC price jumps while the CME market is closed, it creates a gap on the chart between the old close and the new open, right? So as you can see, so there are gaps. Okay, so traders watch these because price often fill the gap by returning to that level, right? So there's a gap. Bitcoin, of course, shoots up. It goes up, and then usually 95% of the time, right, within a week, it will actually go back down to fill the gap. It's kind of like Bitcoin playing catch up within the CME market, right? So as you can see, price gone up Monday, Tuesday, and then of course it went down and down ever since. And then essentially this gap between 90,500 to about 91,000 has been filled a couple of hours ago. But mind you, there are two CME gaps. The other one that hasn't been filled will be around 88,000 to 89,000. So bear in mind, potentially that could be a gap that we're heading towards. And of course, this isn't a suggestion to buy Bitcoin at that price because, we do not have any clarity whether Bitcoin will be heading up more, right? Potentially, it could go back down to fill this gap and continue with the bear trends, right? So bear that in mind. Be careful, guys, and decide wisely on when would be your best entry for all your exit. Okay, so other news. I don't have much visual to show you, so let me bring up my face. Hey, there's my face. All right, so Bitcoin ease after early January pop, right? So, and of course, markets are pricing in Fed's cuts. So Bitcoin had a good start in January. I think looking at the chart, we're so excited and we all thought that Bitcoin will be heading up more over a period of time. I think at the peak we were near 95,000, right? We were near 95,000. We were at around 94,700. So that was like on the 5th of Jan, a few days ago. So price obviously went up and everyone got very excited about the new year, possible new start. Especially equity markets are doing so good, guys. Like stocks and shares, gold, silver, everything pump except for Bitcoin. So people are assuming everything pump always have to lead on to Bitcoin pump too. But that's the harsh reality. It never works out like that. Okay. So we are kind of going through a cooling period right now. Essentially mean price, it drops a little bit. It has to drop, right? Because, there was such a good run from about 80,000 to about 94,000, tops of 94,000. So we're cooling down, and traders think US Federal Reserve, the Fed, will cut interest rates soon. So cut rates mean borrow money cheaper, yada, yada, yada. So this is why things are getting priced in. And so that's why we are getting a bit of a sell-off. Okay, so that's one of the way that we can view this. But at the same time, we are, just a reminder, right? The 4 years Bitcoin cycle top essentially over, right? Although we haven't received a blow off top, right? It doesn't mean the 4 year cycle top hasn't ended, right? Essentially, it means, we simply don't get a all-time high blow off top for this cycle. So just a reminder, guys, that potentially we are heading, rightfully, if we still follows through the 4 year cycle, these are period that Bitcoin will sometime have a decade bounce. For our instance, we're hitting back to about 95,000, and then it will trend lower soon. Okay, so bear that in mind. Do not be too overly bullish until you have, unless the trends tell us so. Okay, and so this is why one of the ways that you can kind of explain why Bitcoin price is going down or continue to trend lower, CME gaps to take into consideration, and so forth. And of course, Bitcoin drops to 90,000. Essentially, we are kind of waiting for a few important data, the jobs data and the court outcome on tariffs, right? So traders, investors, I think these are two key macro that can potentially affect the Bitcoin price action in the coming few days. So number one is the U.S. job report, the non-farm payroll for December 2025. And of course, number two, that would be the Supreme Court decision on President Trump's global tariffs. So let's start with the jobs data first. If weak jobs means economy was, slowing down. So Fed maybe cut rates. That would be cheap for money for Bitcoin, to increase, because people will have more money to buy more Bitcoin, which, by the way, rate cut decision will be on the 27th, 28th. Can't remember exactly the date, but towards end of January. So when we get jobs data, the US jobs report come out this Friday. I think it's this Friday. Let me just quick check. Yeah, initial jobless claims coming out on 8th. That's today, and then followed by US employment report. That'll be Friday. Okay. So Friday at around 8:30 a.m., the official number of new jobs, unemployment rate, wage growth. Very, very important for the market. So do expect volatility, right? So these are times when market maker loves to do their manipulation, right? Job reports come out good, they'll manipulate. They'll take out the long, they'll take out the shorts. Job report comes out bad, they'll do the same, right? So do bear that in mind, and not let this shake you out immediately. So even if you're holding in spot, yes, we are dipping right now, but without having the full picture of what's going on in the market, right? I would suggest not to get paper hand and start selling your Bitcoin. If you have a swing back Bitcoin that you might want to sell. Why it matters, I think job data affect economy view. Strong jobs means maybe no quick rate cut. Bear that in mind, right? That will be announced sometime in end of Jan. And that will be pretty bad for short term for Bitcoin, but weak jobs it's kind of good for long term, right? So, meaning, Fed will have to consider cutting rate at a later date of 2026. And of course, a single data release like CPI, jobs data, jobless claims, etc., doesn't automatically force a rate decision, right? So today's data could influence the Fed's decision only if it meaningfully changes key trends like inflation trends, right? So if inflation, CPI, PCE came in significantly hotter than expected, cuts become less likely this coming FOMC meeting in end of Jan. If inflation cools faster than expected, it supports the case for a rate cut. So we'll see. But of course, labor market weakness essentially means jobless claims, unemployment rise, or slowing wage growth could tilt the balance towards cutting for rate. And of course, strong jobs data, essentially will indicate that Fed rate cuts will be less likely, right? So bear that in mind. We'll have to wait and see the outcome of the data in order to decide what's next. And second thing I've mentioned, tariff ruling, right? How the hell does that affect Bitcoin, right? So if court says tariffs it's illegal, maybe refund duties, change trade policy, etc., that will have some impact onto Bitcoin actually. So the Supreme Court set opinion day this Friday. That means tomorrow, the 9th of Jan 2026 at around 10 a.m. In the morning Washington time. So they can release ruling on tariffs that day, or many things possible for tariffs because case, obviously fast track, but court not say in advance which one. So outcome may be Friday or later if not ready. So there could be tariffs. There could be a outcome on Friday or not. So bear that in mind. Obviously, tariffs hurt trade, expensive import, slow world economy. I don't know why Trump wants to do such a bad things for everyone. But anyway, if court blocks tariff, right, maybe all of this can go away, right? So it would definitely be good for Bitcoin, and risk assets may likely go higher, right? But at the same time, I think Trump also relies on some of these tariffs ruling, tariffs checks in order to give out, the benefits, the revenue that comes in from tariffs to give up his Trump stimulus check. So if that's the case, does it mean the stimulus check will be cancelled, right? If that's the case, that will also affect the Bitcoin price too, right? So this tariff thing, it's such a pain in the ass, right? Because I think during earlier last year, around April period when Trump first announced tariff, right? The whole world gone into a meltdown. Bitcoin dropped, everything dropped, which, by the way, that was one of the best time to accumulate stocks and shares, like Tesla shares. I bought in so much cheap Tesla shares at that time, which I kind of felt that was a pretty good trade. But anyway, let's get back to Bitcoin. So I think Trump potentially can throw out any curveball, and we'll just have to see the effect of it. So yeah, not a good thoughts. And of course, there are plenty of uncertainty in the US. Just to call out a few, government shutdown, I think Polymarket. Let me see, Polymarket. Government shutdown. Will there be another US government shutdown by January 31st? Polymarket's chances, prediction is about 26%. Okay, so bear that in mind. There can potentially be another government shutdown. Rate cut. Do we even get one? This also falls under uncertainty. So prediction market thinks that there will be no change. We won't get a rate cut for January 28th. So that's why the possibility of getting even a 25 basis point rate cut, has been reduced tremendously to about 8%. And then do we even get one for March the 18th? No change, 60%. And of course, the likelihood of getting a 25 basis point increased to about 38%. So any expectation of a Bitcoin pump, right? I think maybe towards Q1 this year as opposed to now, right? So don't expect anything. Just expect more pain, more side chops, maybe more side chops. Do we even get one for April? Let me check. No change, 65%, 25 basis point, 32%. But anyway, of course, Bitcoin price not just affected, it will be affected by many factors, not just on the rate cut. So do bear that in mind. So CPI data will be out on the 13th of January, PCE data on the 29th of January. So in case what on your mind, what the hell is CPI and PCE? Both CPI and PCE measure inflations, so it's very important. Fed, as mentioned earlier, will rely on all of this data to let them know in terms of the trends, the inflational trends, right? So both CPI and PCE measure inflation, basically how fast prices are going up, but they calculate it differently and used for different reasons. Okay, so CPI tracks how much prices rise for everyday things people buy, like food, rent, gas, clothes, transports, etc. Right? So it kind of helped to uncover, in the US, how much more expensive is life this year, right, in the US. Okay, and why it really matters, right? Because high CPI essentially means inflation is hot, rate cut rate cut would be less likely. And if it's a low CPI, inflation cooling, rate cuts will be more likely. And of course, PCE measures inflation too, but in a smarter and broader sense, okay? So it adjusts when people change spending habit, like they switch eating steak into buying more chicken. When prices rise, they drink less, hard spirits and drink more beers. I don't know. Maybe that's a ways of measuring, right? And also looks into healthcare paid by employee versus government, right? So think of PCE as how inflation behaves across the whole economy in the US. And why it really matters, because the Fed uses PCE as its official inflation target, right? So Fed target about 2% PCE inflation. So all of this will affect the outcome of Fed's decision, right? Other news. Okay, so other news. Let me bring out my face. Right. So other news. $12 trillion swaps launch Bitcoin and ETH trading this year. So that's good, right? I think they're pretty big exchange. Bank. No, they're not really exchange, just like bank broker, right? Say they would start Bitcoin ETH trade in 2026, and it's important because normal, ordinary investors, retail investors, they are all coming and getting onboarded onto Bitcoin and Ethereum and crypto. That's very, very good, right? Previously, it's just you and me buying, right? Bitcoin has gone up to about 90,000, and it's really hard to push the price even more upwards. Just think of it this way: if introducing ETF, that was like one of the best thing that has been brought into for Bitcoin, because you don't just rely on strategy or Michael Saylor buying, you rely on the whole of retail buying. You're trying to onboard more people so that Bitcoin price can go even up further, right? So imagine that, right? How many people, how many of you guys can actually afford to buy a whole Bitcoin, right? I obviously cannot, right? So this is why you rely on all of these institutions, even the smart money, the old money, the new money, the wealthy individual, high net worth individual to put more money in, right? So the whole setup are very, very extremely positive, and having this kind of ongoing new onboarding, I think it's all very, very positive for Bitcoin. Not for the short term, of course, right? With such news, of course, it will not affect Bitcoin price immediately. It needs to go through a whole new education. Why Bitcoin, right? Very likely people will be like Ponzi. But no, it's not Ponzi, right? People just need to be educated about Bitcoin. And of course, I care so much about Bitcoin. That's why it kind of gotten up into my compound life. And I tend not to talk about other crypto, because any other asset will trend towards zero when it compares to Bitcoin. So why hold other assets when you can hold Bitcoin instead? That gives you better performance, better CAGR, etc. Okay, and of course, other news, disappointing outcome for MSTR and MSCI. So MSCI obviously announced that it will keep Bitcoin and crypto treasury companies in its index. So great for MSTR, no immediate sell-off. And also MSCI stated that we will not increase share count in the index. So the forced demand to buy, essentially for MicroStrategy shares, MSTR, will essentially be zero. So I've actually covered a pretty long video yesterday, so I think all of you guys should check that out and hit the like, hit subscribe, and comment what you think on this video or on that MSCI video I've made yesterday. So go check that out. I'll drop that in the comment section in case you guys may have missed it. More hopium. Let me bring you guys some hopium, because I've been pretty bearish throughout the earlier part of the video. Just let me bring you some hopium, right? Hopium. Here you go, hopium, right? Okay, Bitcoin historically averages 100% return in the year following a down year. Reminder, guys, 2025 was a down year. It was a terrible year. Does it matter, right? If you've been on Bitcoin for multiple cycles, your average on Bitcoin should really be pretty low, okay? If you've been on Bitcoin for this specific one cycle, where you kind of held from the bottom to the low, to the high of 126, although the fact you haven't, you haven't sold any Bitcoin at 126, you are still at $90,000 per Bitcoin, right? So imagine that. How many X have you made? If you bought at about 16,000, right? We are at around 90,000 right now. How many X have you made? So you do the sum, right? So does a 2025 poor action from Bitcoin, really make a difference? So I feel bad for some that came in that kind of bought Bitcoin at around 126. It doesn't matter, guys. Trust me, it doesn't matter. Don't panic sell. Do not panic sell, guys. just hold it for another few years, right? Or watch my video more, just keep on dollar cost average or pound cost average and bring down your average value. You see the gain in the next cycle. And the next cycle, the Bitcoin cycle is only 4 years, guys. 4 years, right? For any other assets, there's so much macros, geopolitics that could affect the asset price. And then for traditional finance, the cycle essentially would be about 10 years, right? And then for even silver, I think that would be even longer, right? So maybe like 20 years, I don't know, where you can see another all-time high. So Bitcoin is 4 years, right? The worst thing will be you hold it for 4 years and it makes another gain of all-time high. But anyway, come back to the hopium news that I want to bring for all of us. Apology if I've been bearish, but some hopium news. Bitcoin price average return about 100% after every down year. So 2025 down year. So all of the other down year. 2014 down year, 35% increase. 2018, 95% increase. 2022 down year, 156% increase. I'm not saying we'll get 100% up this year for 2026. If yes, that would be extremely great, guys, right? So that means Bitcoin will have a longer cycle. Bitcoin 4 year cycle has somehow have an extended cycle, right? So some hopium for everyone. Overall 24 hours Bitcoin suck a little bit. We were all expecting it to go above and beyond 95,000, which Bitcoin failed to claim and made $95,000 the support. But I think come on bulls, just work harder, buy more, right? Come on, ETF, MicroStrategy, every one of you guys just buy more. Okay, but anyway, it's disappointing, but I'm sure we will get through it, right? Just stick around, side chops a little bit. I think we'll get through. And of course, just want to manage everyone's expectation, right? Because there are still a lot of hopium out there that says, hey, Bitcoin will pump even further. There will be a rate cut coming. I don't personally think there will be a rate cut. Prediction market, no change, 92% recap. 8% for a small 25 basis point cut. Okay, so bear that in mind. Okay, cool. So let's move on to some viewers Q&A. I never used to do this. I think it's rather new to do this. Viewers Q&A. For emails 1417. Hiya, thanks for watching my video. Hey, remember to subscribe, huh? Remember to hit the like and subscribe, all of you, even you, emails 1417. Okay, so I prefer tangible assets. The US government is pushing Bitcoin and crypto. As a previous crypto fan, the benefit many of us saw was crypto being outside government systems. If government has taken over, I won't touch it. I'm stacking with silver, gold, and real estates. Rep. Warren Davidson introduces the Bitcoin for America Act, November 20th, 2025. I'm similar thinking as you, emails 1417. So I started my investment journey purely from real estate too. I think when I was 16, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad from Robert Kiyosaki, and ever since I've decided that, you know what, as soon as I came out from uni, I'm just gonna stack cash and buy my first property. And now I own about 11 properties. Yeah, about 11. some outside of UK. But anyway, I think yes, I still prefer tangible asset too, right? And I love the cash flow with, what you just mentioned, the tangible asset like real estates. I think it's the cash flow part that makes me feel more secure because obviously, I'm into my early retirement. I'm not sure whether I'll make it yet. So I'm kind of like figuring things out. I'm like constantly calculating. I earn all of this cash flow through my properties, but at the same time, I always constantly on my mind, what if this property I need to pour in a lot of money for a lot of fixing? What if some tenants start to trash my properties and I ended up having a 10,000, 20,000 pound or USDs worth of repairs that I need to pay? What if the boiler breaks down? So constantly I do have this kind of things that constantly crops out that will continue to make me worried sometime. But of course, this is where we kind of have to think about diversifying, right? So the reason that really pushes me to, number one, I still love tangible assets. Number two, I know that having tangible assets that I have right now for properties is already good enough that it probably makes sense for me to diversify a little bit because coming to a certain age, you tend not want to deal with too much tenants. You tend not want to deal with too much of the building repairs, etc. Right? You just want to hold asset that would returns you good CAGR. And for sure, one thing that I've identified, which I'm continuously bringing up in my Compound Life channel, is actually Bitcoin. So that's why I will continue to stick with Bitcoin for maybe not too much on silver, which, by the way, I don't hold any silver or gold. I've got a gold chain. That's how much gold I have. See, that's my gold chain. So from that sense, not that I wouldn't get into it, but for now, I don't see too much point get into it because I think holding Bitcoin will probably be good enough, right? And that's my take. And your concern about government taking over the system, Bitcoin and crypto not why you gotten in the first place, because it's something that government cannot control. I felt Bitcoin, it's still something that government institution are trying to control it with all of this wrapper, right? So that's why I think the best thing is just to hold Bitcoin and make sure you correctly follow all the process protocol to store your hardware wallet, lock it up somewhere. Not even the government can claim it, right? So just make sure you practice that, then all should be okay. And Bitcoin should give us that longevity in preserving our wealth. Of course, do your own research. There's always the saying that quantum computing is coming, yada yada yada. Which, by the way, I made a quantum computing video a couple of weeks ago, so remember to check that out. Anyway, good insight. Also, some of my concern too. But I think my ultimate decision is to continue to hold and get more Bitcoin because of the CAGR, because the easier transportation and to pass on wealth to the next generation. That's the attractive side that I'm seeing right now for Bitcoin. And then let's move on to the next one. Jeff Shoesmith 8047. Hello, Jeff. Are you a shoesmith, Jeff? I think we call them the cobbler in the UK. Yeah, the shoe cobbler. But anyway, great, because I used to know a few very, very rich cobblers or shoesmiths down in London. They made absolute fortune. So that's why I know many of these individuals are extremely rich. They do some work that they're into trade that that are very, very specialized, but it's not hardcore difficult. Apology if I might be wrong, Jeff, right? But they are not hardcore difficult. But they are absolutely making a killing when it comes to making money, right? So if that's the kind of Jeff, if you're the kind of shoe cobblers that I'm talking about, let me know. So Jeff's feedback: when the stock market crashes, watch Bitcoin gets ruined. I think you're absolutely right. Thanks for the timing reminder again. Remember, guys, we are in the bear trend for Bitcoin and heading towards a bear market. So if we cannot reclaim that 95,000 and make that a support, and then continue higher to exceed that 200 days moving average at around 105K USD, don't anticipate any bullishness coming out from Bitcoin anytime soon. So Bitcoin to me is heading towards bear market. Any bounce that are coming, will be a good time to take profits. Even for your crypto, right? It's not as if there will be an altcoin season all of a sudden. So bear that in mind. You don't want to hold too much crypto. You can hold Bitcoin forever, but you don't want to hold any crypto, trust me, during a bear market. So if you get a chance, sell your crypto, right? Even if it means making some losses, sell them, and then hold cash, hold USDT, hold stablecoin. The next best time to re-enter Bitcoin, I think, would be end of year, right? Sometime in November. So bear that in mind. Thanks again, Jeff, for this good reminder in terms of timing. I think 2026, after the midterm election, that's when everything will start going down. Okay, so midterm election, any of you guys not know this, it would be sometime in early November. So usually the time going up to the midterm election, stock markets, everything will be really, really good. I hope Bitcoin will be good too, but I might be wrong. We might be going into a bear market after all. But if that's the case, make sure, you take some of this timing that Jeff's obviously mentioned into consideration too. So thanks, Jeff, for the reminder. Okay, another viewer, Mario Luigi VB3RP. Hi, Mario Luigi. Which one are you? Silver and gold have just begun. Also, silver production is slowing down, no doubt, and the demand is higher than the output. Not to mention, China will no longer provide silver for the world. Silver is also on the critical mineral list. They can't paper smash the price all they want, but physical price is going to continue to climb. It's already higher in China than it is in the States. Absolutely. Matt Black 882 responded, gold sure, silver no. Silver is going to drop back since it is needed for production. So here's the thing with gold and silver investment. I think it's simply just playing the emotion, the sentiment that things are not good, economy is not good, people needs protection, there are wars going on, etc. So that's why gold and silver goes up, right? And you need to be mindful that when we kind of get into the midterm, right, when there are heaps of quantitative easing getting into the system, right, this is when some of this rotation will happen, right? People will be happy with the economy, they want to take more risks, so that's when they're going to start to sell all of this into into stocks and shares or even Bitcoin. So personally, I'm kind of seeing that there will be some rotation coming. I'm not the gold or silver person. I do see a lot of value in holding gold and silver. But the fact that because gold, at least from the perspective of gold, Bitcoin does the exact same thing as gold. But for the time being, not just many people knows about it just yet. So this makes Bitcoin much more valuable and top of mind consideration for, at least for myself, because I know that in the long run, it will be more valuable. It will be a good replacement of gold, and ultimately, what we're trying to do is to get more of the gold market share. Wow, which as of today is about $30 trillion. It used to be about 25 trillion, but it's definitely gone up. And look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is only like 1.7 trillion, right? So think of the debasement trade, right? So think of the bet. If Bitcoin is the ultimate hedge against inflation, debasement, and so forth, essentially it means it's trying to steal more of the gold market cap, right? So this is why I'm still in Bitcoin as opposed to FOMOing into gold. So that's what I want to say. Move on to the next person. Okay, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. If I pronounce it wrong, apology. But let me know in the comment section if I do pronounce it wrong. I'm just not good at pronouncing name. Okay, I think it's called Van Vin. Van Vin, hi. Good to see you. Thanks for watching my video and thanks for doing all the comments. Remember to hit the like, hit subscribe, and I value all of you as my viewers. So Van Vin, thank you, Jonathan. Always enjoy your informative content. Great, thank you. It's always nice to receive nice comment as such. Another thing, what are your thoughts on Polkadot? Okay, so this is a Bitcoin channel. We tend not to talk about any other things, but the fact that I also have a small tiny bag of Polkadot. Not financial advice, guys. I'm not asking any of you guys to buy Polkadot. So that's why I want to address this question, right? So Polkadot is and continue to become a serious technology. I think great technology, right? I think the thinking of the technology, it's very advanced in a way that, however, it does seem great technology, but in terms of investment, it just struggle, right? And the struggle mainly comes because of the adoption. So background, if any of you guys do not know about Polkadot, Polkadot came into spotlight in 2019 and 2021. That was also the time that I got into Polkadot too. So I got in quite high up when Polkadot was quite expensive. And ever since I bought it, I never actually sold any Polkadots, by the way. Okay. So it was founded by Gavin Wood, a co-founder of Ethereum. Okay. So that's why it's also got hyped out too, because at that time, Ethereum was so successful. And anyone that came from the Ethereum background, they'd be treating him like God, right? So obviously Polkadot, it kind of promises a powerful vision of layer 0, right? So we always think about layer 1. So they're trying to think of something outside the box a little bit by introducing layer 0 blockchain that could connect many specialized blockchains. They call it the parachains securely. And essentially what Polkadot is trying to solve will be solving scalability, interoperability problems that Ethereum had during that time. Okay, so it was a good solution to introduce because Ethereum was booming fast, and then Ethereum got scaling issue. So Polkadot came in and tried to bring in a very good solution to the issues that Ethereum's, essentially cannot scale, right? But look at it this way, right? Ethereum, the number 2 biggest blockchain in the world, plenty of adoption now. But certainly, comparison to the transaction, I've shown a chart before, Ethereum is nowhere near something like a layer 1 blockchain like Solana, right? So if that's the case, essentially means interoperability, scalability, it's not really an issue anymore in 2025, right? So in terms of scalability, that's definitely been addressed by many layer 1. So of course, taking into consideration the fact that when users, or not users, the programmers, the developers, when they try to program within the parachain, number one, a lot of their capital needs to be locked in within the parachain auction. And then also programming for the developers on the parachain was rather complex, not straightforward, right? So that's why the adoption has been extremely low. Of course, I think Polkadot saw the ineffectiveness of the parachain auction, so that's why they've already removed that. But having said that, I think overall it's still good technology. Maybe the interoperability consideration, it's very, very important. But there are more solutions out there that, that are solving this for any other chains, right? So this is why I think, Polkadot never get on much traction. But certainly, I mean, because the fact that I'm still holding a bag of Polkadot, right? So to me, Polkadot is not exactly dead, but it's a high risk, long wait bet, right? So yeah, I mean, Van Vin, if you're the type of person, investor that can hold for a longer period of time, I think, selling now, I do not know about your entry price, by the way, but I'm guessing, probably your bag will be similar to mine, which is under a lot. But it's fine. I think this is why I kind of put Polkadot into staking. Let me check. What's the staking yield? Hang on. Let me just check. So Polkadot staking, it's returning me about 12% APY, right? So I think the best way to do it might be to stake a Polkadot, get that 12% return on dots, and try to leverage native staking to build up a bigger bag of dots. That will essentially help you to, reduce your average and wait a little bit. So I somehow think, there will not be an alt season this cycle, right? Maybe the next cycle, in the next 4 years' time, there might be an alt season. So from now until that time, I'm just going to let it stake, let it bring down my average. And then at any opportunity that if I don't make too much losses on Polkadot, I'm just going to sell it all and rotate into Bitcoin. That's my way of dealing with, hodling a least performing bag for too long of a period of time. Okay, so maybe this would be the last one because I'm such a long video today. Macro 89, just a tip to those who are starting to accumulate and getting into investing crypto. It's worth setting up account with exchanges, brokers, so they are ready for when you are. Absolutely. Good advice, mate. Also, on top of this, deposit and withdraw some funds to learn your liquidity timeframes. Maybe even buy the minimum amount so you know how to orders. I found doing near the end of tax season particularly beneficial. I was able to gain much rounders much rounded understanding of the entire process this way. Oh, and research. Absolutely. Knowledge really is power here. Thanks, Macker89. Yeah, I think definitely, this is something we all need to do, right? Especially you new. And deciding on the exchanges is also very, very important, right? You know what? I never got into this kind of video. Maybe kind of give me some good idea. Maybe I should also get into this kind of video, but I think I'll get into this kind of video towards Q3, Q4, when my advice to everyone right now is seriously stack cash, stack as much cash as you can right now, liquidate whatever the hell that you can right now, and just prepare for the next coming cycle. I think the next cycle, again, for Bitcoin will be explosive. Apology to say this, right? I know many of you guys don't like it, but don't really touch on crypto unless, you know, there are some big layer ones like Ethereum, Solana, BNB. BNB did exceptionally well all throughout all the cycles. But having said that, I think great advice, Macker89. Try out different exchanges, you know, learn how to buy and sell, right? And you need to automate this in a way that you don't just follow sentiment, right? So when Bitcoin pumps, when it continue to pump multiple months, each day, each week, you know, it continue to pump, you know, you're going to get so greedy that in the end you decide that, you know what, I don't want to sell it because this thing will be going to the moon. And that will be the time when Bitcoin starts to drop. And when it drops very fast. And then you will still be in the mood to say that it will pump back again. It will pump back again. Trust me, guys, it will not. Okay, so you always need to know the time frame, follow through the 4-year cycle. So the 4-year cycle, you know, it peaks around Q4 2025, right? So in that case, you need to make sure that if that's the timing, make sure you follow pound cost average or dollar cost average, right? So how I do it, you know, I make sure that whatever I preach, I actually practice that. And I actually put a small percentage of withdrawal on a daily basis, like 100 days for throughout that, you know, take profits period. And you guys need to learn how to do that on an exchange or through a broker, right? So that you can start to calculate, how much the transaction costs on a broker, how much transaction costs on Binance or any other exchanges, or do I need to buy some of the tokens from exchanges so that my fees can be reduced. So you need to learn all of this, and the only best way for you to do it, you need to do this early so that you can get into the routine and all of the relevant selling. So great advice, Mecha89. Thanks for all of your contribution. You guys have been great to me. You know, I'm still here making video. It's because of your likes, your comments, your subscribe. So I think that's it for today. One long hour. Thanks for watching my video. Hit the like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Bye-bye.